to the prologue, which started at the Garden of the Gods here, heading down to Colorado Springs. It was just over 5.2 miles as the riders left the park and headed downtown Colorado Springs.
Probably the only stage of this race, Phil, that actually went downhill. It started right there in that incredible park, and a chance for the fans in the United States to see the Tour de France stars, Andy Schleck and Cadel Evans.
Yes, the Tour de France podium was here in the race. That's never happened before in the history of American cycling. Christian van der Velde was the 11th rider to start of the 130 riders, and he set an extremely good time for the ride, 8 minutes and 29 seconds. Quite honestly, we thought that would have been good enough to win, but it wasn't to be the case. HTC High Road is an American team, and they have a very fast German on it. When we interviewed him after this, he said, well, I thought I was a favourite because I was confident I could win. Well, we didn't think so, but he did, and he did. He won by 2 seconds when he got to the line with the time of 8:27.
Yes, he bettered the time of Christian van der Velde, but everybody wanted to know how Andy Schleck was going to ride the time trial. The time trial is his nemesis. He, in fact, lost this year's Tour de France because of a bad performance in the individual time trial, but he actually came to Colorado 10 days before this event to acclimatise.
Yes, and supported all the way by the crowd. He's a very, very popular image wherever he races around the world, and everybody was curious to see Cadel Evans, the first ever Australian to win the Tour de France. He won it in the time trial, but here at altitude he wasn't riding quite so quickly, but the crowd were there and they were to stay with us for the next week of racing. In the end, 9th place for Cadel on the day, which meant that John Hickenloper, the state governor here, was able to present the yellow jersey to a German, Patrick Gretsch. He was now the first leader of the new USA Pro Tour Cycling Challenge.
No, a young rider, but then when we went out to stage one, everybody was expecting to have some fireworks, especially on the climb up to Crested Butte, or Mount Crested Butte, because that was a finish at 10,500 feet in altitude.
And when they got to the finish, they raced through the town of Crested Butte, heading up towards the finishing line a couple of kilometers outside of town. After 99 miles of racing, it was a battle of the stars. It was all about altitude as well. The crowd was still with us, and it was a hometown boy, Levi Leipheimer, who jumped away, winning a race like in a style he's never before done. That was the beat with a power finish up the hill. He got the yellow jersey off a very, very tired Patrick Gretsch.
Well, Patrick Gretsch, not a great climber, but enjoying his first day in the yellow jersey, and at the end of the day, the new yellow jersey going to Levi Leipheimer, looking very radiant on the finishing line, but knowing he was setting himself up for the next stage, which was going to be what the Spanish called l'Etapa Reina, the queen of stages.
Andy Schleck still all smiles, but it wouldn't be a good day for Andy this day as he raced from Gunnison to Aspen, a massive 130 miles in the mountains, a high mountain, more than 12,000 feet, no fears of height for the man that's born in the mountains, Levi Leipheimer. This happened, the biggest accident and the only real accident of the race, I'm delighted to say. A mass pile-up as they approached the Cottonwood Pass. They hit one of those cattle grids across the road. The man most seriously injured, Daniela Calagarin. Facial injuries, 2 broken hands, taken to hospital by air. I can tell you that today, though, he's going home to Italy.
Yes, but when we got to the top of Independence Pass, TJ Van Garderen, the best young rider in this race at 23 years of age, he really put the cat amongst the pigeons, and he forced eventually a group of 7 riders clear on the way into Aspen.
Yes, coming off Independence Pass in the rain, the riders took risks, and George Hincapie, who hadn't won a race since 2009, and that was when he was American champion, was back on the winner's rostrum. But the important finish was second place TJ Van Garderen, because he gained enough time on the way downhill to take the yellow jersey off Levi Leipheimer.
There was a huge amount of time. In fact, he put 45 seconds between himself and the group that contained Levi Leipheimer, but that was on the eve of a very important individual time trial out of Vale, uphill for 10 miles.
So we moved to Vale by car for the serious time trial stage now. We always call it the Race of Truth, a mere 10 miles or 16 kilometers, but it started downtown Vale, it finished up the Vale Pass, and Christian van der Velde was at it again. This man was on fire in the time trials.
No, he certainly was, and he went out to 5th rider from the end, and when he got to the finishing line, he stopped the clock with the best time, but he wasn't the last man to finish. He had to wait to see what sort of time Levi Leipheimer was going to do.
Levi Leipheimer out of yellow, but now the points leader of this race, riding in green. A terrific cheer from a massive crowd in downtown Vale. The crowds too. This was an Alpe d'Huez at Tour de France atmosphere on the climb. When he hit the line, 58 hundredths of a second to the good. He didn't know whether he was first or second, and nobody could tell him at this point. That left the yellow jersey, TJ Van Garderen, to launch his attempt. Now, Van Garderen is a very good time trial rider, but I think today, Paul, the pressure got to him.
Well, sometimes one says that the yellow jersey allows you to sprout wings, but sometimes it can be very heavy on your shoulders, and especially when you're a young 23-year-old. TJ Van Garderen lost himself 51 seconds to Levi Leipheimer and the overall lead.
Leipheimer had lost the jersey in Aspen. He got it back in Vale, and he was now the leader of the Tour once more. And the roads ahead were looking kind of sweet.
Yes, for Levi Leipheimer, he's been in positions like this in any bike races around the world, whether it's the Amgen Tour of California or the Tour of Utah. But stage 4 took the riders 83 miles from Avon to Steamboat Springs.
And they all came together. It was a bunch sprint in a massive crowd in Steamboat Springs, and they turned on the style. This was the first time we had mentioned the name of Elia Viviani. He was a sprinter. He was back in his playground, and he was delighted to win.
Yes, at just 22 years of age, he saw the door opening in front of him, got the turbos whizzing around there, and got to the line in first place with a very emphatic win.
So, Elia Viviani sealing himself a place on the Italian World Championship team with his victory here. Meanwhile, Levi Leipheimer happy to sit in the peloton, come over the line in the same time, and retain all of his lead without any loss of any time. So we came to yesterday. We started again up from Steamboat Springs. We are heading now to Breckenridge, 106 miles. The crowd are following the Tour wherever we went, and they were ready. The fans themselves had made their pick on the Road ID ride of the day, and it was Andy Schleck. He got into the breakaway on Rabbit Ears Pass, and as he went over Swan Mountain, again through a massive crowd of noise, he was on his own, heading for victory.
It was a great move, but on the run in towards the finish, he was picked up by the 3 guys who were with him, and they played cat and mouse tactics and slowed down their average speed. And as they came into just 700 meters to go, whoopsie-daisy, here comes the main field.
The breakaway was caught in sight of the finishing banner. The sprinters are back in the picture. Nobody expected this on the road to Breckenridge because it sits at just below 10,000 feet above sea level. But he was there again, led out by Daniel Oss. He found his legs to win. Even Oss was there this time on the left there. He got third.
Amazing performance by this young man, just 22 years of age, and I have to say this team, Liquigas Cannondale, well, they've got something to write home about now, haven't they?
And so Levi Leipheimer yesterday pulled on the final leader's jersey of this race. Now he was heading towards the finish in Denver, where he hoped to convert it into a winner's jersey. So let's have a look at today's stage here. The Honeywell signing this morning in Golden, the beautifully named town in Colorado, as he looks out at the crowd. Cadel Evans had a great week of cycling after winning the Tour de France in the month of July. They were all about to ride their final stage from Golden, as we show you here, the Nissan Leaf electric Leaf start. We have this all-electric car leading the boys out to the race start proper.
No, but for many of these riders, I think it just goes to show the amount of respect, Phil, that the European riders have showed for this first inaugural USA Procycling Challenge, because when you bring the podium of the Tour de France, Cadel Evans, Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck to the state of Colorado, well, that's a nod of authority.
We went to the only climb of the day now, which was Lookout Mountain. This was a terrific battle because they were trying to battle out the leader and winner of the Nissan King of the Mountains. As they came up onto the climb towards the summit here, there was going to be a change on the very last day. There was no sign of Pedraza in the Nissan red jersey as leader of this competition. And his worst dreams were being realized, because in the front group was Rafael Montiel over the top first. Well, Infantino was first, Montiel was second, but those 7 points were crucial. Montiel was the winner of the King of the Mountains.
But in the group behind, Christian Van der Velde was trying to put a little bit of pressure onto the shoulders of Levi Leipheimer, but so too was TJ Van Garderen. On the descent, a large group of 19 riders started to form with some of the big names. The only man missing was George Hincapie.
This was an incredible chase. We went back to Golden after we'd done the circuit of Lookout Mountain this morning, and the riders would not ease up off the pace until in the end there was a breakaway of 4 got clear. Oscar Sevilla, Javier Mejias, Lachlan Norris and Matt Cook.
They built up a big advantage, 2 minutes and 15 seconds over the main field, who were quite happy to let them ride away. But then once they got into town, the crowd and the wall of noise that they were riding through was immense.
Into town they come. It wasn't all good news. Cadel Evans here had a flat back tyre, the most crucial stage of the race. These boys were going round the streets of Denver at 31 miles an hour. Evans had to chase back, but his team were up for it. They dropped back. They looked for their team leader, and they towed him back into the race.
Yeah, helped there by Chris Butler from Hilton Head, South Carolina. As the main field started to get down to around about 30 seconds, all of a sudden there was another very vicious attack, and this came from Yoriv Megias.
Megias starting to move away for Team Type 1 to try and give it a nice Spanish flavour on an American team victory. It wasn't to be, though. Well, it might have been yet, because at this stage, 2 riders were swept up from the breakaway. Lachlan Norris was the next one to come into the gun sights of the peloton, and then it was all over. It all came together just 6 miles, about 11 kilometres from the finish.
Yes, all of a sudden it was a gruppo compacto, as they say in Italian, a group all together. Then the sprinters started to lick their lips, but a moment.
And so to me now, these boys might have pulled off a little bit of a surprise.
Well, Liquigas of Elio Viviani, the big man who's won the last 2 stages in a row, have got to get themselves organised. The time gap has now stretched up to 12 seconds advantage for these 3 leaders. Royalston keeps coming to the front. The other rider in the black jersey, Oscar Alvarez of Gobernación de Antioquia. It's amazing to look at the amount of time these riders have lost, but all of a sudden they found the power and the desire to win the final stage.
They've warmed to the flatter roads of Denver after our journey of a week through the highest road in the state of Colorado. Cottonwood Pass, Independence Pass. These boys have been mountaineering and conquered the lot. Now they just want to win here outside of the State House. Now, as we watch here, the 3 are working well together. Little glance over the shoulder there by Ryan Roth, and he's seen the gap, and he's going to take a lot of good feelings from that. The Spider Tech team, which is a Canadian team, devastated by the fact they've lost half of their squad during the week, now are in with a chance of a win.
Well, it's an interesting team as well, put together by Steve Bauer, the very famous Canadian cyclist who on a couple of occasions wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and back in 1990 he wore the yellow jersey for 10 days, and he's created this Spider Tech team, and this is Roth on the front with the pale blue jersey, because he wants to build up a Canadian squad to possibly participate in the Tour de France in the next couple of years.
So they've really just got to get their head down now and hope that they've done all that is required to win the day. The gap is there, but the time is running out. We are on the final lap of the race. We are halfway around it, and they've not got them yet. But let's think about yesterday, Paul. They came up with 700 yards to go.
Well, you might see this orange jersey. Well, in fact, this is in fact Andy Schleck. He's wearing the orange jersey for the most aggressive performance of yesterday, and today he's putting in a sterling ride here again. He has to be one of the most popular foreign riders riding in the USA Procycling Challenge here, and he said last night, he put out on Twitter that he felt riding over that final climb of the day yesterday, he thought he was actually in the Tour de France.
Well, that is a brave move by Andy Schleck. He really does advertise his attacks, though, and he's gone clear again. So Schleck is trying to bridge the gap to the leaders. What this is doing is keeping the pressure on, full-on pressure. No chance just to get a few deep breaths and ease back and prepare for the sprint. There's no opportunity now. They are racing right up to the red line of their effort.
I'll tell you one thing, Andy Schleck has got himself across that gap, well, halfway across that gap, and the main field are actually starting to lose their impetus, because the gap from the 3 leaders to the main field is now stretched out to 15 seconds. The team Liquigas, who are trying to get their sprinter to the front end of this race this afternoon, are going to have to get themselves organised, Phil, pretty smartish.
So these are the 3 riders. The Canadian, Ryan Roth, is on the right-hand side. He's just getting back onto the tail. They might well have seen that Andy Schleck is coming, but so too is the fragmenting peloton as they're all trying to sweep it up. They are desperate now to shut this race down for the sprinters. They're not far from the finish.
Well, Andy Schleck got halfway across the gap, and all of a sudden he stumbled, and he's back in the main field very, very rapidly. I can just spot the yellow jersey there on the left-hand side. Levi Leipheimer. He's staying at the front end of this pack. He's not going to be a sprinter down towards the end, but he's just being there to keep away from any possibility of an accident. Schleck is back in the main field. The pale green jersey you might just have noticed there is that young sprinter, 22 years of age, from Italy, Elio Viviani.
Well, this is a nail-biting finish now for sure. Those 3 are still surviving, and there is the peloton over the tram tracks, trying now to bring back. Ryan Roth is keeping the pressure on at the front. He's being followed there by Oscar Alvarez and Hayden Royalston. Those 3 riders are still still working together, but the peloton is chasing. It is the Rabobank team from Holland now who are also trying to whip up the pace. They've got a very good sprinter in Dennis van Winden.
It's pretty much all over here now as we look at 1.5 miles to go to the finish. 2.5 kilometers. The three men try to break the stranglehold of the sprinters, but Roylston's gone straight over the top again.
Roylston, who started the move, no, it's not, it's Ryan Roth this time who's made a move as he's tried to crack them. As they pick up Roylston and Alvarez, it is still the Canadian trying to destroy the sprinters' hopes.
Well, you can see that was a pretty impressive move. He went over the top. HTC have now launched a man out of the pack down, try and get across here. The sprinters are trying to control the front end of the main field to make sure that there's no confusion on this running towards the finish. Very shortly, they're going to see a banner over the finishing line, which they will all be waiting for. It'll be a banner that will indicate the final 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer.
And will a Canadian pull this off? A little glance over his shoulder, and he decides to get on with it, but they're coming at him very, very quickly now. It looks as though HTC High Road, it is indeed, who are trying to. Danny Pate was the man launching the sprint there, as now it's started. United Healthcare to put in their move with Adrian Heveregard in. Now the field is all together, but they're still not waiting for the sprint. They've launched again now. This is another attack.
This in fact is TJ Van Garderen, the young rider from Team HTC High Road. He will not give up. His third overall, and I tell you what, as we go under the max, there's 1 kilometer to go. It's all back together. Levi Leipheimer is on the defensive.
1,000 meters from the finish, and Leipheimer is still chasing TJ Van Garderen. He doesn't want him to get even a few seconds time bonus. The whole peloton going to the last 800 meters together.
Well, this is amazing. These guys at the backfield, they've got no chance of a victory here this afternoon because they are just sitting up. They cannot keep the pace going in this final dash for the line right around the corner. Everybody nice and safely. TJ Van Garderen is in first position, followed there by Levi Leipheimer. Fifth place is Elio Viviani in the lime green jersey.
And that's the one to watch out for. Watch for the all-green jersey now. Daniela Oss is going to lead him through. He's been pushed off the wheel. No, Viviani's got second around the corner. No, he hasn't. He's got third around the corner. This is going to be a line-up for the finish now. Viviani is perfectly placed. Daniela Oss is leading me out for the third day running. Now, can he launch Viviani to win number 3 of 3? And surely he can. He's actually given it to Daniel Oss. He's just let his teammate take it. He didn't need to pass him. That was the reward of 2 days of victories by Oss over Viviani. And there is the winner of the inaugural first ever Pro Cycling Challenge we have seen, and it's gone to the American Levi Leipheimer.
Well, Leipheimer was put under a little bit of pressure over those final few kilometers. I take my hat off to TJ Van Garderen. He really tried right the way up to the finish line. But just take a little bit of a wind back, Phil. Daniel Oss was gifted the victory there by his own teammate. And you might have noticed Elio Viviani was looking around over his shoulder to see if anybody was going to beat his teammate. And he sat up there and said, mate, it's yours.
It was all too easy at that speed for those two top sprinters. The present was returned to Oss. There he is there. He's got his stage win. Unselfishly these past 2 days, he's led out Viviani, launched him to the line and watched him win. Today, Viviani returned the compliment.
But he was waiting there, Phil. He probably could have got past his teammate. He just looked over his left shoulder, his right shoulder, to see if there was any shadows coming up from behind. And once he saw that his teammate could get it, he just stood back a fraction.
But that's when that would also confuse the other riders in the sprint, because they will wait for Viviani to go. And Viviani didn't have to go because his teammate was taking the victory. So it was looked pretty easy in the end, and that's what happens when it all works out. Tim Duggan there will be very pleased with himself, seeing his teammates go first and second after all of his hard work throughout the afternoon here in Denver to bring that race back together in time for the big sprint finish.
Well, let's have a quick look at that once more, Phil. That was a greatly timed sprint there. You can see there is Daniel Oss, and strangely enough, despite the fact that he's a very good sprinter, that's only the second ever victory of his professional career. The last time he won was last year when he won the Giro del Veneto in the northern part of Italy.
Yeah, but he too is still a very young rider, 24 years of age, and 22 in the case of Viviani. It's another double victory for Viviani, really, because he's consolidated and has now won this race on points, which is the second most important classification. There he is. He wears that green jersey, Smashburger points champion, and the points jersey rider goes to the most consistent daily finisher. Well, He just got second, and the last 2 days he's won. So you can't be much more consistent than that.
Well, I don't know how many people are out there watching this bike race, Phil, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear figures between 120 and 150,000 people on a circuit like that of 7.5 kilometres, 5 miles around this course, and there wasn't a place, I don't think, that you could get a spare seat.
No, I think probably more than that. Well, the police will tell us that later on. They have done a brilliant job, the police here, throughout the whole state of Colorado. They've created a very safe environment for everybody to enjoy the spectacle of the best bike riders in the world racing on American roads. Let's have a look then at the United Healthcare results, see how it went. Oss was the victor today ahead of Viviani. It was Fast Freddy Rodriguez on the comeback trail, making a comeback to the sport, just getting into 3rd place there. Danny Summerhill, who's had a great tour and now will sign full papers for Garmin Cervelo, in 4th place. The top 6 completed by none other than the maillot jaune, the yellow jersey itself, Levi Leipheimer. Now, the other Colombian climber, is also a pretty good sprinter to get across the line in 7th, and the top 10 completed by George Hincapie. They did time the gap, you see. 2 seconds is what the referees say. They were behind the leaders today. Leipheimer dashing off in the distance because he's now heading for the presentation, where he will be given the last yellow jersey, the one, of course, everybody wants, because there's no defending that tomorrow. It's yours to take home. Great moments, proud moments. An American takes out the USA Procycling Challenge. Rick Schauder there, who's really supported this race. It's because of his generosity this race has become truly possible. And now on the left of the picture, it looks John Hickenlooper there, the state governor as well.
Well, the crowd for this still going crazy about this victory for Levi Leipheimer. Just a mere 11-second winning over Christian Vande Velde and 17 over TJ Van Garderen.
Yes, so the big primary sponsors on the right, Rick and Richard are there on the right. The state governor is centre left there, and Levi Leipheimer completes a perfect opening inaugural USA Pro Cycle Challenge, Paul.
Well, you know, he's put a very disastrous Tour de France behind him, but he kept his mental there, he kept his psychology right up there and came up with this great win here. He was a little bit upset to lose the lead on the descent down into Aspen, on a treacherous descent away from Independence Pass. But he came back the next day. Well, he bounced back the next day in that individual time trial to Vail.
So John Hickenlooper on the left of our picture. He looks pretty fit, doesn't he, the state governor? Well, he is. He rides a bike, so he was delighted to be in the seat of state governor when this race came into town. And these are our 2 great hostesses here. They've had a week of planting those kisses on Levi Leipheimer, which they've loved doing. That's Rachel and Ashley. And they've enjoyed. They've brought a real ambience to the event.
No, they certainly have, and Levi Leipheimer has stamped a certain amount of authority over the event as well, after recently winning the Tour of Utah, I should say defending his title of the Tour of Utah, to come here and win this race in a very dominant fashion.
Second, you've got to feel sorry for Christian Vande Velde. This is the final standings now, presented by United Healthcare. Levi Leipheimer, 11 seconds to the good. These actual gaps have not changed for 3 days, and 5 Americans dominate the finishing positions.
Well, this is Daniel Oss, the winner of the final stage. It wasn't really supposed to be like that. He was trying to lead out his teammate, Elia Viviani. But when Viviani saw that his teammate could get across the line in 1st place, it was payback for the 2 wins that the other young Italian had got.
Yes, this is the first real big result for this man this year. He's only won 1 other race in his life, a small single-day race in Italy in August last year. I guess he likes winning in August.
Well, maybe that's the time of the year for him, but that was a real joy on his face there in a dominant fashion. Where he actually went round the corner in 1st place and stuck it all the way to the line.
It looks like the champagne was a little bit too warm there. It took the cork off by itself as he sprays the crowd here. Daniel Oss, he won the Giro del Veneto. And because of his victory and the way he won today, we've made him our Road ID Ride of the Day. This is how he did it. Now, he was leading out Viviani here. You see Viviani checking over who's coming close. Nobody. OK, then let him win. And that was a big win for Daniel Oss. He's only 24 years of age, and he's on the way. Quite clearly has a personality too, because these last 2 days, when he's led his teammate Viviani to win, he's always smiled. That's our roadid.com. Ride, Ogden 3rd. There is Viviani. we'll see him again shortly to win the green points competition. He's happy enough. The second for him today was very special because his teammate won. He speaks extremely good English, by the way, and he's only 22 years of age. And he rides on the Part American team here because the bicycles, Cannondale, are built here in the United States. And so it's a bit of a home victory too. 2 wins now. His next big rendezvous will be the World Road Race Championships in Denmark, which is a flat course this year. There's no hills in Denmark. And as a sprinter, he'll be actually thinking he might be a world champion in about a month's time. Now, the next one is rather special because I really thought I would never mention Fred's name again on television. I've commentated him around the world for years and years. Now we're waiting for Fast Freddy to come on up and get a third-place finish. He's 38 years of age now, and he will be next week. And he hasn't been really winning any races since he won a Tour of Elk Grove the first day in August 2007. There he is. He wanted to help out with this new American professional team, Exergy, and give the young kids some advice. And the best way to do it is to get back on the bike and start racing again. Look at it. Here we are. He's finished third. So as they look out around now, Fast Freddy is going to step up on that podium alongside 2 Italians. Now, we are going to take another break, but we are going to speak with Levi Leipheimer. Just letting him get behind scenes there. So we will have an interview with Levi Leipheimer when we come back. And he is the first winner of the USA Procycling Challenge. These boys, the first 3 on the day. And what a day it is here in Denver. We'll see you back with us in just a moment. And then we'll have Levi Leipheimer to talk with us. See you in a moment. Now we're going to bring what I always call the most expensive line of washing onto the stage. As we look here, it looks as though Tim Duggan got the most aggressive rider on the right there. That was the Exergy prize for him. The blue jersey of Best Young Rider is worn tonight by TJ Van Garderen. That's a sheets competition. And the Smashburger points is gone to Elia Viviani. Not smiling yet. He looks rather confused, doesn't he? But the Nissan King of the Mountains is Rafael Montiel. Then comes the big man. The Quiznos yellow jersey, the winner's jersey on the shoulder of Levi Leipheimer, who at almost 38 years of age is simply getting better and better and better. So an absolutely tremendous result, especially for USA and Colombia. They were doing their own, dominating whenever they could. Well, we're going to have to say goodbye now from our live coverage here, but I hope you've enjoyed it. This is a race which is going to stay in Colorado. It has been an outstanding success.